The stars looked cold and empty as the last Cathari ships limped through space. Their silver hulls were black with burn marks. Some ships had holes where enemy weapons had punched through. The engines coughed and sputtered like dying animals. Ambassador Veltar stood on the bridge of her ship and watched Earth grow larger in the viewing screen. Her skin, which should have glowed soft blue, was dim and gray. She had not slept properly in weeks. None of them had. "Are you sure about this?" asked Captain Zexhai from behind her. His voice was tired. "The humans are still young. They might not understand." Veltar touched the wall of her ship. She could feel it shaking. The engines would not last much longer. "We have no choice. Our fuel is almost gone. Our food stores are nearly empty. The children are getting sick." Through the metal corridors of the ship, Cathari families huddled together. Parents held their young ones close. The little ones did not understand why they could never go home again. They asked when they would see their friends, their pets, their favorite trees. The adults had no answers. Only 6 months ago, the Cathari had ruled 12 beautiful worlds. Their cities floated above crystal lakes. Their farms grew under 3 different colored suns. Children played in gardens where the flowers sang in the wind. Everything was peaceful. Everything was safe. Then the Devourers came. The Devourers were not like other species. They did not want to trade or talk or make friends. They only wanted to consume. They ate everything: plants, animals, cities, even the soil itself. They left behind only empty rocks floating in space. The Cathari military tried to fight. They had ships and weapons and brave soldiers. But the Devourers were like a disease that spread faster than anyone could stop. World after world fell. Billions of Cathari died. The survivors ran. 40,000 people in old cargo ships and damaged warships. They flew as far and as fast as they could. But the Devourers followed them like hunting beasts. Ship after ship was caught and destroyed. Now only 20 ships remained. 20 ships carrying the last of an entire civilization. Veltar had heard about humans from other species. They were young and aggressive. They fought wars among themselves. They were not very advanced compared to older species like the Cathari. But they were close, and the Cathari had nowhere else to go. The human space station grew larger on the screen. It was a simple metal structure, not beautiful like Cathari buildings, but it looked solid and strong. Human ships moved around it like busy insects. "Incoming transmission," said the communications officer. His hands shook as he worked the controls. A human face appeared on the screen. The creature had strange flat features and tiny eyes, but when it spoke, its voice was calm and welcoming. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We received your request for emergency assistance. Please transmit your location and status. We are preparing to help you." Veltar stepped forward. She had practiced this speech many times during the long flight to Earth. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Cathari Confederation. We request temporary sanctuary and basic supplies for our refugee fleet. We can offer technological information in exchange. We only need enough fuel and food to continue our journey to the outer rim." Admiral Chen's face changed. His small eyes became intense. "How many ships? How many people?" 20 ships. 40,000 survivors. "What happened to your worlds?" Veltar's voice became quiet. "The Devourers consumed them. Everything is gone." "Admiral." Chen was silent for a moment. Then he turned and spoke to someone off-screen. Veltar heard rapid human speech but could not understand the words. When Chen turned back, his expression was hard and angry. "Ambassador, we are sending escort ships to guide you to our main docking bays. Do not worry about payment or exchange. We will discuss details later. Right now, our priority is getting your people safe and cared for." The human ships that came to escort them were small but moved with purpose. As the Cathari fleet slowly approached the station, Veltar saw more human ships arriving. Big ships carrying supplies. Medical ships with red crosses painted on their hulls. Even civilian vessels seemed to be coming to help. "This is unusual," Captain Zexhai said quietly. "Most species would want to negotiate first. They would want to know what we could give them before they agreed to help. Veltar nodded. She had expected long discussions about payment and limits on assistance. She had prepared arguments about why humans should help them. She had brought samples of Cathari technology to offer as trade. Instead, the humans seemed to simply accept that help was needed and help would be given. The docking process took hours. The Cathari ships were too damaged to dock safely at first. Human engineers came aboard and worked frantically to make temporary repairs. They did not ask for permission or payment. They just saw problems and began fixing them. When Veltar finally stepped onto the human station, she was met by a group of humans in different uniforms. Admiral Chen was there, along with doctors, engineers, and officials she did not recognize. "Welcome to Orbital Station 3, Chen said. "We have prepared temporary housing for your people. Our medical teams are ready to examine anyone who needs care. Our engineers want to assess your ships to see what repairs are needed." "Admiral," Veltar said carefully, "I want to be clear about our situation. We cannot pay you immediately. Our government no longer exists. We have very little to offer, except some technological data." Chen looked confused. "Ambassador, your people are refugees fleeing genocide. Payment is not relevant right now. Our job is to help you survive and heal. We can discuss everything else later." A human doctor stepped forward. She was a small woman with kind eyes. "Ambassador, we understand that your species has different biology than ours. We have prepared special medical facilities and brought in xenobiology experts. If you could help us understand your medical needs, we can make sure everyone gets proper care." Veltar felt something strange. For months she had carried the weight of her people's survival on her shoulders. She had made desperate decisions and impossible choices. She had become used to the idea that no one would help them unless they could give something in return. But these humans were offering help simply because help was needed. They were angry about what had happened to the Cathari. They seemed to take the Devourer attacks personally, as if their own families had been hurt. "I do not understand," Veltar said honestly. "Why are you doing this for strangers?" Admiral Chen looked at her with surprise. "Because you asked for help. Because you need help. Because we can give help." He paused. "Is there some other reason we should need?" As Cathari families began moving from their damaged ships to clean, safe housing on the station, Veltar realized that everything she thought she knew about dealing with other species might be wrong. The humans were not calculating cost and benefit. They were not thinking about what they could gain. They were just helping because helping was the right thing to do. For the first time in months, Veltar allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, her people might actually survive. 3 weeks had passed since the Cathari arrived at the human station. Veltar had planned to stay for only a few days, just long enough to get basic supplies and repairs. But the humans had other ideas. Every morning, Veltar watched human work, crews swarm over the Cathari ships like busy ants. But they were not just patching holes and refilling fuel tanks. They were completely rebuilding everything. "Look at this," said Chief Engineer Brachtel, showing Veltar a datapad. "They replaced our entire engine core. This new human fusion drive is 3 times more powerful than what we had before." Veltar stared at the numbers. "That must be very expensive technology. Why would they give it to us?" Brachtel shook his head. "I asked the same question. The human engineer, Sarah, just laughed. She said their old engines were junk, and they would not let anyone fly around in unsafe ships. This was not the temporary assistance Veltar had requested. The humans were giving the Cathari military-grade equipment, advanced computers, new weapon systems, medical facilities better than what the Cathari had possessed even before the war. Veltar walked through the station corridors toward the medical bay. Everywhere she looked, humans were working with Cathari, not working for them or commanding them, but working together as if they were all one people. In the medical bay, Dr. Martinez was examining young Cathari children with gentle hands. She had learned to speak basic Cathari language in just 2 weeks. The children, who had been silent and afraid since fleeing their homeworlds, were actually laughing as she made funny faces during their checkups. "Ambassador," Dr. Martinez said, when she saw Veltar. I wanted to show you something wonderful. Look at these scans. She pointed to images on her screen. When your people first arrived, many showed signs of severe stress and malnutrition. But look at them now. The children are growing again. The adults are sleeping better. Your people are healing. Veltar looked at the healthy scans and felt tears in her eyes. For so long, she had watched her people slowly dying. Now they were coming back to life. Doctor, I must ask again, what does your government want in return for all this help? Dr. Martinez looked confused. Want? We want your people to be healthy and safe. Is there something else we should want? Before Veltar could answer, Admiral Chen appeared in the doorway. Ambassador, could you come with me? There is something we need to discuss. Veltar followed Chen through the station to a large meeting room. Inside, dozens of humans sat around a long table. They had charts and computer screens showing star maps, resource calculations, and ship designs. Please sit, Chen said. We have been working on long-term solutions for your people. A woman in a civilian suit stood up. I am Director Walsh from the Colonial Development Authority. We have been studying the data about your lost worlds and the Devourer attacks. She activated a holographic display showing a map of human space. We believe we can offer your people permanent settlement opportunities. We have 17 worlds that were set aside for future human colonization. These planets could be modified to match Kithari environmental needs. Veltar stared at the display. The humans were offering entire worlds. Not temporary shelter, not refugee camps, but permanent new homes. I do not understand, she said slowly. These are valuable planets. You could sell them or use them for your own people. Why give them to refugees? Another human, an older man with gray hair, answered. Because your people need homes, because we have homes to give, because that is what you do for family. Family? Veltar repeated. That is what you are now, Admiral Chen said simply. You came to us for help. That makes you our responsibility, our family. We take care of family, Director Walsh continued. We have also prepared educational programs to help Kithari children learn human languages and customs while preserving their own culture. We have job training programs for adults who want to work in human industries, and we have cultural preservation projects to make sure Kithari history and traditions are not lost. Veltar felt overwhelmed. Director Walsh, Admiral Chen, I must be honest with you. My people have very little to offer in return. Our technology is damaged. Our knowledge is incomplete. We cannot repay such generosity. Chen looked angry, but not at her. Ambassador, do you think we are keeping score? Do you think we are calculating the cost of helping you? Most species do, Veltar said quietly. We are not most species, Walsh said firmly. We are humans. When someone needs help, we give help. When someone needs a home, we give them a home. When someone needs protection, we protect them. That is who we are. A younger human at the table spoke up. My family lost our farm to flooding last year. The whole community came together to help us rebuild. Nobody asked what we could pay. Nobody calculated the cost. They helped because we needed help. This is the same thing, just bigger. Veltar realized that what she was seeing was not unusual human behavior. This was normal for them. They saw someone in need and they helped, regardless of cost or benefit. Over the following days, Veltar watched this philosophy in action everywhere. Human families were volunteering to host Kithari families in their homes. Human teachers were learning Kithari language to better communicate with refugee children. Human engineers were working 20-hour days to upgrade Kithari ships. Not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted to. In the evening, Veltar often sat in the station's observation deck, watching human and Kithari children play together. The little ones had no trouble becoming friends despite their different appearances and languages. They just accepted each other and had fun. Captain Zexhai joined her one evening. I have been talking to the human military officers, he said. They want to train our surviving warriors in human combat techniques. They want to integrate our people into their defense forces. As auxiliary troops? Veltar asked. No, HFY said with surprise in his voice. As equals. They want our knowledge of devourer tactics. They want our people to help protect human worlds. They trust us to defend their families. Veltar nodded, slowly. The humans were not just offering charity. They were offering true partnership. They were treating the Cathari not as refugees to be helped, but as valuable people who belonged in human society. Captain, she said quietly, I think we are witnessing something very rare in the galaxy. A species that helps others not because they have to, but because they want to. Not because it benefits them, but because it is right. What do we do with such people? HFY asked. Veltar smiled for the first time since leaving her homeworld. We try to be worthy of them, and we try to learn from them. That night, Veltar sent a message to the other Cathari ships scattered across the galaxy. She told them about the humans. She told them about planets being offered as new homes. She told them about a species that gave help without asking for anything in return. The responses came back quickly. Other survivors wanted to know if this was real. They had been wandering in space for months, expecting to die alone in the dark, between stars. Now there was hope. Now there was a future. The humans had wanted to give basic aid to refugees. Instead, they were giving the Cathari something much more precious, the chance to live again. 6 months had passed since the Cathari arrived in human space. Their damaged refugee ships had been completely transformed into something Veltar barely recognized. The hulls gleamed with new armor plating. The engines hummed with quiet power. The weapon systems could actually defend against serious threats. But that was not the most surprising change. Veltar stood in the conference room of Earth's orbital command center, staring at a holographic display that showed detailed plans for 3 entire star systems, not temporary camps or small settlements, but complete worlds being prepared for Cathari colonization. These cannot be real, she said for the 4th time. Admiral Chen smiled patiently. Ambassador, I understand this is hard to believe, but yes, these are real offers. Director Walsh activated another display. Kepler 442b is being terraformed to match your homeworld's atmospheric composition. The gravity is already very close to what your people are used to. We estimate 18 months before the first colonists can arrive. Another human official, Minister Harrison, pointed to the second planet. Gliesa 667cc has 3 suns, similar to your original capital world. The seasonal patterns should feel familiar to your people. We are building initial cities based on traditional Cathari architecture. Veltar felt dizzy. The scope of what the humans were offering was beyond anything she had imagined possible. These were not just places to live. They were new homeworlds specifically designed for Cathari needs and preferences. Minister Harrison, she said carefully, do you understand what you are giving up? These planets could house billions of humans. You could sell them to other species for enormous profits. You could use them for military bases or resource extraction. Harrison looked confused. Yes, we understand their value. That is why they are appropriate gifts for your people. Gifts? Veltar repeated. What else would we call them? Chen asked. Your people lost everything to the devourers. You need new homes. We have suitable worlds available. It is simple. But it was not simple. Veltar had studied galactic politics for centuries. Species did not give away entire planets to refugees. Even the most generous aid packages involved payment plans or service contracts or political agreements. The humans were offering planets with no strings attached. There must be conditions, Veltar said. Requirements. Obligations. Director Walsh consulted her notes. Well, we do have some requirements. Cathari colonists will need to follow basic safety regulations. No dumping toxic waste. No building cities on earthquake fault lines. Standard environmental protection rules. That is all? Oh, and we hope your people will consider joining the Earth Alliance Defense Agreement, Chen added. But that is completely voluntary. We will protect your worlds whether you join or not. Veltar sat down heavily. In all her years as a diplomat, she had never encountered generosity on this scale. It defied everything she understood about how civilizations interacted. Minister Harrison activated a third display. There is one more thing we want to discuss. We have located 17 other Cathari survivor groups scattered across the galaxy. Small fleets, individual ships, hidden colonies. We want to bring them here too. You want to gather all the surviving Cathari in human space? We want to reunite your people, Walsh said gently. Families separated during the evacuation. Scientists and artists who escaped to different sectors. Children who lost their parents. Everyone who survived deserves to be part of rebuilding Cathari civilization. Chen pulled up star charts showing search patterns and rescue missions. We have dispatched fast ships to make contact with these survivor groups. Some are in very bad condition, running out of supplies, hiding in dangerous areas. We are bringing them home. Home? Veltar asked. Here, Chen said simply. Human space is their home now. Your home. Veltar stood and walked to the large window, overlooking Earth. The blue and green planet below looked so peaceful. Ships moved in orderly patterns around orbital installations. Everything looked stable and secure. Admiral Chen, I must ask you something directly. Are you planning to use the Cathari for some purpose? Are we intended to serve as soldiers in a human army, workers in human colonies, subjects in human experiments? Chen joined her at the window. Ambassador, what do you think we are planning? I do not know. That is what frightens me. What frightens you is that we might be planning nothing except to help your people live good lives. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Yes. Why does that frighten you? Because it is too good to be true. Because species do not act this way. Because there must be a price we do not see yet. Chen turned to face her. Ambassador, let me tell you about my daughter. She is 8 years old. Last month she found a bird with a broken wing in our garden. She brought it inside and spent weeks caring for it. She fed it by hand, cleaned its cage, talked to it every day. Did she want something from the bird? She wanted it to be healthy and happy. When it was strong enough, she released it back into the wild. She cried because she would miss it, but she knew it belonged free. Veltar considered this. That is different. That was one small creature. Scale does not change the principle, Chen said. Your people are injured. We want to help you heal. We want you to be healthy and happy and free, just like my daughter, with her bird. Director Walsh approached them. Ambassador, we understand this is overwhelming. You do not need to make any decisions today, but we want you to know that these offers are permanent. Whether you accept them next week or next year, the planets will be waiting. What if we decide to leave human space entirely? Veltar asked. What if we take your ships and your supplies and go somewhere else? Then we will wish you well and ask you to stay in contact so we know you are safe. Walsh replied. Veltar stared at her. You would not try to stop us? Why would we stop you? They are your ships now, your supplies, your choice. That evening, Veltar called a meeting of all the Cathari ship captains and family leaders. She presented the human offers in detail. The room was silent for a long time after she finished speaking. Captain Zexhai spoke first. These humans are either the most generous species in the galaxy, or this is the most elaborate trap ever created. Elder Morthak, the oldest surviving Cathari, raised a trembling hand. I have lived for 400 years. I have seen many species make many promises, but I have watched these humans for months. I have seen how they treat their own children, how they care for their sick, how they help their neighbors. This is not a trap. This is who they are. Young Felnara, barely an adult, stood up. The human children I play with do not see me as different or strange. They just see me as a friend. Their parents invite me for dinner in their homes. Their teachers help me learn to read human writing. If the adults are offering us planets, maybe they really mean it. The debate continued for hours. Some Cathari were suspicious, others were hopeful. All of them were exhausted from months of uncertainty and fear. Finally, Veltar called for quiet. We do not need to decide everything tonight, but I think we should try to understand what we have found here. The humans are not just offering us aid. They are offering us adoption into their civilization. They want us to become part of their family. What does that mean for us? Asked Captain Yendar. It means we stop thinking like refugees and start thinking like citizens. It means we stop waiting for permission to exist and start planning how to live. It means we accept that maybe, just maybe, we have found something very rare in this galaxy. A people who help others simply because helping is right. As the meeting ended and the Cathari returned to their quarters, Veltar remained at the observation window. She watched human ships patrol the space around their fleet, protecting them, keeping them safe. For the first time since the Devourers destroyed her homeworld, Veltar began to believe that her people might not just survive, but actually thrive. The humans had offered them the impossible, a second chance at civilization, with no price except the hope that they would be happy. Maybe it was time to accept that some gifts were exactly what they appeared to be. The alarms began screaming at 0347 Earth Standard Time. Veltar woke instantly, her body remembering the sound of danger from the months of running from the Devourers. She rushed to the communication center of the Cathari settlement on Orbital, Station 3. Admiral Chen was already there, his face grim as he studied incoming sensor data. Ambassador, we have a problem. A large fleet just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of our system. The main screen showed dozens of organic-looking ships. Their hulls pulsed with sickly light. Veltar recognized them immediately. Devourers, she whispered. How many? Chen asked. Veltar studied the formation. Her hands shook as she counted. 87 ships. This is a full hunting fleet. They must have followed our trail here. A communication request came through on the standard galactic frequency. Chen accepted it, and the screen filled with the nightmarish image of a Devourer commander. Its body was a writhing mass of tentacles and teeth. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. Humans of Earth, you harbor our prey, the Cathari belong to us. Surrender them immediately and we will consider sparing your worlds. Chen's response was immediate and cold. This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force. The Cathari are under our protection. Leave our system immediately or face the consequences. The Devourer commander made a sound that might have been laughter. Your species is young and weak. You have perhaps 20 ships. We have come with a harvesting fleet. Do not sacrifice your lives for prey that will die anyway. The Cathari are not prey, Chen said firmly. They are our people, and we protect our people. The connection ended. Around the command center, human officers began moving with practiced efficiency. Orders were given. Ships were scrambled. Defense systems came online. Veltar grabbed Chen's arm. Admiral, you do not understand. 87 Devourer ships can destroy everything in this system. Your fleet cannot fight them. You must evacuate your people and let us go. Chen looked at her with surprise. Ambassador, are you suggesting we abandon you? I am suggesting you save yourselves. My people caused this danger by coming here. We will not let you die for us. That is not how this works, Chen said firmly. He turned to his communications officer. Send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them we need every available ship. Tell them we are protecting family. Within hours, human ships began arriving from across their territory. Not just military vessels, but civilian craft with weapons hastily mounted. Transport ships converted to carry missiles. Even research vessels equipped with experimental weapons. The human fleet grew to 43 ships, still less than half the size of the Devourer force. Captain Zexhai found Veltar in the command center. Ambassador, the human captains want to meet with our surviving military officers. They want to learn about Devourer tactics. The meeting was unlike anything Veltar had ever seen. Human and Cathari officers sat together around a holographic battle display. There was no hierarchy based on species, no suspicion or distrust, just professionals working together to solve a problem. Commander Sarah Banks, a young human with determination in her eyes, listened carefully as Cathari veterans described Devourer attack patterns. So they rely on overwhelming force and biological weapons. What are their weaknesses? Captain Zexhai pointed to the display. Their ships are living creatures. They feel pain. They can be confused by certain energy frequencies. and they become less coordinated if you destroy the command organisms. How do we identify command ships? Asked another human officer. They are larger and pulse with brighter light, explained Captain Yendar. But they are heavily protected. In all our battles, we never successfully killed a command organism. Banks studied the data. What if we do not try to kill them? What if we try to capture them? The Cathari officers looked confused. Capture devourers. That is impossible. They cannot be negotiated with or controlled. Not controlled, Banks said with a smile. Confused. If we can capture a command organism alive and flood it with contradictory signals, it might disrupt their entire formation. Over the next 2 days, human and Cathari engineers worked frantically to prepare for battle. They developed new weapons based on Cathari knowledge of devourer biology. They created communication systems so the two fleets could coordinate. They shared tactical data and battle plans. Veltar watched humans preparing for a war that was not theirs, against an enemy that had never threatened Earth. They worked with the intensity of people defending their own homes and families. Why? She asked Admiral Chen as they reviewed the final battle plans. Why are you doing this? You could evacuate your people from this system. You could relocate to safer space. Why fight a war for refugees? Chen looked at her as if the question made no sense. Ambassador, what would you do if someone threatened your children? I would fight to protect them. The Cathari are our children now. This is what parents do. The battle began at dawn. The Devourer fleet swept toward the human defensive positions like a plague of locusts. Their bioships fired weapons that dissolved armor and turned metal into organic matter. The first engagement was a disaster. 5 human ships were destroyed in the opening minutes. The Devourer weapons were more terrible than the humans had imagined. But humans adapted quickly. They began using hit-and-run tactics, striking at Devourer flanks and retreating before the enemy could respond. Cathari pilots flying human fighters used their knowledge of Devourer blind spots to guide attack runs. The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides were destroyed. Space filled with debris and the strange organic matter that leaked from damaged Devourer vessels. Then Commander Banks executed her desperate plan. Leading a squadron of fast human ships and Cathari volunteers, she punched through the Devourer formation toward the largest command ship. Her ships took massive damage, but they reached their target. Instead of destroying the command ship, they used a new weapon based on Cathari research, a neural disruptor that flooded the command organism with chaotic signals. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The entire Devourer fleet began moving erratically. Ships collided with each other. Their coordinated attacks dissolved into confusion. The human and Cathari fleets pressed their advantage. Working together with perfect coordination, they began systematically destroying the confused Devourer ships. The battle ended when the surviving Devourer vessels fled into hyperspace. Of the 87 ships that had arrived, only 12 escaped. The cost was terrible. 16 human ships were destroyed. Hundreds of human crew members died defending people they had known for less than a year. In the aftermath, as rescue ships searched for survivors and medical teams treated the wounded, Veltar found Admiral Chen in the command center. He was staring at the casualty reports with heavy eyes. Admiral, she said quietly, I am sorry for the lives lost because of us. Chen looked up at her. Ambassador, those people did not die because of you. They died protecting you. There is a difference. How can you see it that way? Because that is what they chose. Every human in this battle volunteered. Every ship captain could have withdrawn. They stayed because they believe the Cathari are worth protecting. Veltar felt tears running down her face. We will never be able to repay this debt. There is no debt, Chen said firmly. Family does not owe family for protection. Family protects family because that is what love means. The word hung in the air between them. Love, not duty, or obligation, or political alliance. Love. Admiral, Veltar said slowly, my people have learned something important today. We learned that there are humans willing to die for Cathari. But we also learned that there are Cathari willing to die for humans. Captain Yendar gave his life to save Commander Banks's ship. Pilot Felnara died protecting a human medical vessel. Chen nodded. They died protecting their people. All of their people. As the reports came in from across the system, the scope of human commitment became clear. Civilian ships had evacuated to safety, but thousands of human volunteers had stayed to help with defense and rescue operations. Human families had opened their homes to Cathari children during the battle. Human doctors had worked alongside Cathari medics to save lives without regard to species. The Devourers had come expecting to find divided forces, humans protecting reluctant refugees. Instead, they had faced a unified civilization fighting for its family, and they had lost. That night, as the combined human Cathari fleet celebrated their victory, Veltar realized that something fundamental had changed. The Cathari were no longer refugees in human space. They were humans. And humans were Cathari. They were one people now, forged together in battle and bonded by sacrifice. The Devourers had intended to reclaim their prey. Instead, they had created something new, a civilization built on the radical idea that love could be stronger than fear, and that family was something you chose rather than something you were born into. 2 years after the battle that had changed everything, Veltar stood on the bridge of the HSS Unity, watching a new group of refugee ships approach human space. These were not Cathari vessels, but the remnants of the Zilani civilization, another species that had fallen to the Devourers. 23 ships, reported Commander Sarah Banks, now serving as Veltar's second-in-command. Approximately 15,000 survivors. They looked to be in bad shape. Veltar nodded, remembering her own desperate arrival at this same station so long ago. The circle was completing itself. The rescued had become the rescuers. Send them the standard greeting, she ordered. Tell them they are safe now. Tell them they are home. Behind her, Captain Zexhai smiled at the familiar words. The phrase had become the official welcome for all refugees arriving in what was now called the Alliance systems, the growing coalition of human and rescued species that had formed after the Devourer defeat. The Zilani ships were even more damaged than the Cathari fleet had been. Some were barely holding together. Their hulls were marked with the distinctive burn patterns of Devourer bioweapons. As the refugee fleet docked at the massive new orbital facility, built jointly by human and Cathari engineers, Veltar watched, the same scene she had witnessed dozens of times over the past 2 years. Human and Cathari medical teams rushed to help the wounded. Engineers began assessing ship damage. Social workers prepared temporary housing. The process had become routine, but it never became cold or bureaucratic. Every refugee was treated as if they were the first and most important people ever to need help. Ambassador, came a voice behind her. Admiral Chen approached, now wearing the insignia of the Alliance Defense Force rather than just the Earth military. The Zilani delegation is ready to meet with us. The meeting took place in the same conference room where Veltar had first been offered entire planets. The Zilani ambassador, a tall crystalline being named Shard of Dawn, sat nervously at the table. Her body flickered with anxious colors. Ambassador Shard of Dawn, Veltar began gently. Welcome to Alliance Space. We understand your people have suffered greatly. We are here to help. We request temporary shelter and basic supplies, Shard of Dawn said formally. We can offer technological data in exchange. We only need enough resources to continue our journey to unclaimed space. Veltar and Chen exchanged glances. The words were almost identical to what Veltar had said when she first arrived. Ambassador, Chen said kindly, we are not interested in temporary solutions. We want to offer your people permanent homes, new worlds where you can rebuild your civilization, full citizenship in the Alliance, protection under our defense agreements. Shard of Dawn's crystalline body flashed with disbelief. That is impossible. Species do not offer such things to refugees. We do, Veltar said simply, because we understand what it means to lose everything, because we have the resources to help, because helping is who we are. Over the following weeks, the Zilani received the same overwhelming support that had amazed Veltar years before. Their ships were not just repaired, but upgraded with the latest Alliance technology. Their wounded were healed with the best medical care available. Their children were enrolled in schools alongside human and Cathari youngsters. But something even more significant was happening across Alliance space. The Cathari settlements on their new homeworlds were thriving. The terraformed planets now supported millions of Cathari citizens who lived in beautiful cities that blended traditional architecture with modern Alliance technology. Cathari scientists worked in joint research projects with human colleagues. Cathari artists created works that celebrated both their lost heritage and their new future. Cathari children grew up speaking 3 languages: their ancestral tongue, human standard, and the musical Cathari dialect that had evolved in the refugee camps. The integration was so complete that it was often impossible to tell where human culture ended and Cathari culture began. Alliance ships carried mixed crews. Alliance colonies welcomed settlers of any species. Alliance schools taught the history of all member civilizations as equally important. But the most remarkable change was in how the galaxy viewed the Alliance. Reports had spread throughout known space about the humans who fought wars to protect refugees, about the civilization that gave away planets to strangers, about the military force that spent more resources on rescue missions than on conquest. New refugee fleets arrived every few months. The survivors of the Manthari hive worlds, the remnants of the Corvan trading empire, individual ships carrying the last members of species whose names were barely remembered. All of them received the same response. Welcome home. The Alliance had grown from a single human species to a coalition of 17 different civilizations. Each brought their own knowledge, skills, and perspectives. Together, they had become something stronger than any of them could have been alone. The reports from the Outer Rim are encouraging, Director Walsh said during a council meeting. 3. More Devourer fleets have been encountered and defeated by Alliance forces. The survivors are no longer fleeing toward empty space. They are coming here. Veltar studied the tactical displays. The Alliance military now included ship designs based on the strengths of all member species: human engineering, Cathari biological knowledge, Zilani crystal technology, and innovations from a dozen other cultures had created a force that could stand against any threat. But more importantly, it was a force with a clear purpose. The Alliance did not fight for territory or resources. It fought to protect people who could not protect themselves. What about the surrendering Devourers? Admiral Chen asked. The integration camps are working better than expected, reported Dr. Martinez, now head of Alliance Xenobiology. We have successfully rehabilitated 47 individual Devourers who rejected their species' predatory instincts. They are providing valuable intelligence about remaining Devourer strongholds. This had been the most controversial Alliance policy. When individual Devourers surrendered and requested asylum, the Alliance had chosen to accept them. Not everyone agreed with showing mercy to former enemies, but the precedent had been set by human philosophy. Anyone who truly wanted help would receive it, even former Devourers. Veltar thought about the strange turns her life had taken. She had started as a desperate refugee begging for basic supplies. Now she was co-admiral of a military force that protected half the galaxy. She had expected to spend her final years watching her people slowly die in exile. Instead, she was helping to build a new form of civilization. Admiral Veltar, came a voice from the communication station. We are receiving a priority message from the exploration fleet. The main screen activated, showing Captain Felnara, the young Cathari who had once played with human children on the orbital station. She was now an adult, commanding one of the Alliance's deep space vessels. Admirals, she reported, we have made contact with a previously unknown species, the Thymalians. Their civilization is under attack by a species called the Ravagers. They are requesting assistance. Veltar smiled. Another species in need. Another opportunity to extend the Alliance. Family. How many ships do they need? Admiral Chen asked. They have not requested ships, sir. They have requested sanctuary for their population. Approximately 4 billion individuals. 4 billion refugees, the largest rescue operation in galactic history. Chen and Veltar looked at each other. The decision took less than a second. "Tell them we are coming," Veltar said. "Tell them to begin evacuation procedures. Tell them they are going to be safe." "Admiral," Captain Felnara said with pride in her voice, "it will be my honor to deliver that message." As the communication ended, Veltar reflected on what the Alliance had become. It was no longer just humans helping Cathari, or even humans and Cathari helping others. It was a growing family of species united by a simple principle: when someone needs help, you give help. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. A civilization that grew not through conquest but through adoption. A military that fought not for territory, but for people. A society that measured success not in resources acquired but in lives saved. "Admiral," Chen said quietly, "sometimes I wonder what would have happened if your ships had gone to a different system. If you had asked the hegemony for help, or the Trade Federation, or any of the other powers." Veltar considered this. "I think we would have received exactly what we asked for. Basic supplies and temporary shelter. We would have been processed as refugees and eventually relocated to some marginal world where we could slowly fade away. But you came to us. We came to you," she agreed. "And you gave us so much more than we asked for. You gave us hope. You gave us a future. You gave us a family." Chen smiled. "You gave us something too, you know." "What did we give you?" "Purpose." Before the Kithari arrived, humans were just another ambitious species expanding into space. We were looking for resources, territory, influence, the same things everyone else wanted. He gestured toward the star charts showing Alliance, space. "Now we know who we really are. We are the people who help others. We are the species that protects the lost and adopts the abandoned. We are the civilization that proves love can be stronger than fear." That evening, as Veltar prepared for sleep in her quarters on the Unity, she received a message from her adopted human family on Earth. Admiral Chen's daughter, now 16 years old, was starting university and wanted to study Kithari xenobiology. She wanted to help the next group of refugees who would inevitably arrive needing medical care. The message included a photo of the girl with her pet bird, not the same one she had rescued years ago, but one of its offspring. The tradition of caring for wounded creatures had continued. Veltar smiled as she composed her reply. She would recommend the best teachers, arrange for internships with Alliance medical teams, and perhaps invite the girl to spend a summer working with refugee families. Because that was what family did. They helped each other. They supported each other's dreams. They made sure everyone had the chance to grow and thrive. Outside her window, the stars shone with promise rather than threat. Somewhere out there, the Thymalian evacuation was beginning. Somewhere else, new refugee ships were fleeing unknown disasters. And throughout Alliance space, millions of people from dozens of species were living, working, and building a future together. The Cathari had asked for aid and received unbroken devotion. In return, they had learned to give the same devotion to others. The cycle continued, growing stronger with each new family member added to the Alliance. And in the vast darkness between, stars' hope traveled faster than the speed of light, carried by ships that flew not toward conquest but toward rescue.